For more on this, we are joined by Daniel Pomerantz in our studio as the CEO of Reality Check and a legal and political analyst. Thank you very much, Daniel, for joining us. Well, that's the big question. Is this isolated? Is this a larger trend? What's going on in Europe right now?
In Austria, just this year, there were 719 anti-Semitic attacks. 14 of them were violent assaults, and the others of various types, such as this train incident. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but the Jewish community of Austria is only 10,000 people, which means as a per capita number, that's a 7,000 per capita number. Just to give a sense of perspective, in America, Jews are the most highly targeted groups with 10 hate crimes per capita. Black communities are at 7, Muslim communities are at 4. In Austria, that number, if you did the same math, would be at 7,000. So this is a serious problem and a growing trend.
So the big question is, and we've just been discussing during the break, how do you combat this rising trend if it's so disturbing, and it certainly seems to be?
Well, at Reality Check, what we found is the answer to a great extent is education. Our study that we're working on has shown that states in America that have Holocaust education have vastly lower hate crimes per capita, not just against Jews, but against all groups, blacks, Muslims, LGBTQ, everything. Now, in Austria, there is Holocaust education in the schools, but it's unclear how high the quality is. We've found that, according to statistics released by the Claims Commission and by the Austrian Parliament, the hate crimes, 56% of Austrian people don't know that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. That number goes up to 58% among millennials and Gen Z. Something like 30% of Austrians believe that Jews take advantage of the Holocaust. 20% believe that Jews are partly responsible for causing the Holocaust. And the biggest belief in Austria, and this is part of the whole Austrian national identity, is that they were the first victims of Hitler and the Nazis. But of course, a study of the Holocaust shows that they actually welcomed Hitler, not just welcomed him, but welcomed him back, as he wasn't originally a Nazi, and was originally Austrian, and in fact were significantly enthusiastic collaborators in the work of the Nazis. So while there's Holocaust education in Austria, there's a great deal of lack of proper knowledge, and we see that playing out in the hate crime statistics.
The statistics are incredibly high, as you mentioned. Who is committing all these hate crimes?
You know, this is a mainstream phenomenon. It started off with these niche neo-Nazi far right-wing groups, and we also saw a great deal from Austria's 700,000 strong Muslim community, which includes migrants and refugees from other places, and which has grown significantly since the 1990s. However, when we look at numbers like 56%, 20%, 30%, this is mainstream. And that is the disturbing thing, that has become sort of a standard mainstream understanding in Austria and in other places of Europe. It's no longer niche, it's no longer fringe. And that's where education is incredibly important.
Is there a sort of point of no return when we're looking at education, where people of maybe certain groups have a deep-seated belief, a deep-seated hate, and at that point, education is not going to sway them? It might even just reinforce their beliefs.
We haven't seen any evidence for that. As far as we know, education always has an impact. Now, we have done studies where we found that on most issues, about 10% of people will already agree with you, so you're preaching to the choir. Another 10% will never agree with you, so there's no point in trying to sway them. But the other 80% are people who can be swayed either way. They want to be good people, but they don't understand how. Or they're angry about something, or they're suffering in their lives in some way, and they want to take out the anger somewhere. And they can be swayed in any number of different directions, depending on what they know. And that's who you're trying to reach. There will always be that 10%, and particularly if you're debating with someone online or in your community, there's always someone who's never going to agree with you. But there's always other people listening, whether it's online or in a social setting. And the people listening who may not be talking are the ones who can be swayed in either direction.
So ultimately, what tools are left for that remaining 10% that you're not going to argue with them, you're not going to sway them, you're not going to educate them, but you have to protect your community from them?
You do have to protect your community, but the effect of the 10%, the power of the 10%, is in the influence they have over the mainstream. And when hate becomes mainstream, that's when you really see significant problems and dangers. If you're talking about 10% of the people and only a smaller number of them will actually commit hate crimes, law enforcement may be enough for that. It's when it's protecting our communities from mainstream hatred, both anti-Semitism and in general, that's where the work really has to be focused.
Okay, well, thank you for a look at that, at preventing hate and hopefully reversing some of the worrying trends that we're seeing worldwide. Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you, Ariel. My pleasure.